Little Serenity, just 9 years old, beautiful and bubbly, vanishes from a children's home and is still missing tonight. Joining us, Lynn Shaw and the search for Serenity.
It was 10:45 a.m. on a Sunday morning. Serenity is in the gym at the Black Hills Children's Home with 2 staffers and 3 other kids. One child causes a disturbance, and a staffer attends to that child. Serenity then ran out of the building. At 11 a.m., Serenity is last seen walking near the home. At 12:26 p.m., a 911 call goes out to the Pennington County Sheriff's Department. A deputy arrives at 12:40. By 1:16, the decision is made to bring in search and rescue.
Wow, that's a long period of time before search and rescue is brought in. Joining me, in addition to Lynn Shaw, Irv Brandt is joining us, former U.S. Marshal who can track down anybody anywhere in the world and has done it. But first, 2 special guests joining us, Bart Fancook, investigative reporter, content director at South Dakota News Watch. Bart, you are intimately familiar with this case. What happened? How did Serenity just wander away from a children's home with a whole fleet of employees who are supposed to do nothing but guard the children?
First of all, according to her parents, she did have a propensity to run away and then want people to look for her. So she made a plan with another child there. That child distracted the other workers at the home, and she was able to escape on a door that didn't have proper locks. She was able to run across the property, and there was only a 3 to 4 minute window where she wasn't seen before she actually technically disappeared. So a lot of questions about the security there. Some changes have been made, but certainly there was a big preponderance of guilt on the part of the children's home and the employees there. But I think the big mystery here is what happened in those 3 or 4 minutes where from the time she was last seen to when someone actually tried to physically pursue her. But yeah, there's a lot of mysteries here. This is one of the biggest mysteries in South Dakota, certainly in recent times.
Hold on, I've got a question.
Go ahead.
Bart, and I know you know the facts much better than any of us do. With me is investigative reporter, content director, South Dakota News Watch, Bart Fancook. Bart, from the way you tell it, it all boils down to 3 or 4 minutes. But how long did it take to call in search and rescue?
Yeah, there was an 80-minute delay before 911 was called, and that's just inexplicable. I think it was a matter of, it was a Super Bowl Sunday. People there were, well, let's look for her. She had run off in the past. Let's find her on our own first. But an hour and 20 minutes really is, that raises a big question mark about the judgment of those employees. Certainly not having, authorities trained in search and beginning a widespread search immediately or as soon as possible was a big mistake. And it's one it hovers over this case.
If she was abducted in a car, can go 60 miles an hour or more. And you take an hour and a half before you call in a search crew or report her missing, that perp could be 60, 70, 80, 90 miles away by that time. Do I think that's what happened? I don't know. It could have. The frantic search for a missing 9-year-old little girl in South Dakota in a children's home is futile. Listen.
Authorities in Rockerville began a search for a 9-year-old girl. Serenity Dennard was last spotted leaving the Children's Home Society around 11:20 in the morning. The little girl has blue eyes and shoulder-length dirty blonde hair. She was last seen wearing a long-sleeved gray shirt with flowers and blue jeans. Temperatures the night Serenity went missing were expected to drop below 0.
The home we keep talking about has a name. The Black Hills Children's Home Society, entrusted with guarding children. Well, they didn't. In addition to Bart Fancook joining us from South Dakota News Watch, Irv Brandt and Lynn Shaw, founder and executive director of Lynn's Warriors. Lynn's Warriors is committed to ending human trafficking and sexploitation. And when Serenity first went missing, she was all over this and still is. Lynn Shaw, what are your thoughts on Serenity's disappearance?
First thing, Nancy, thank you for covering this, because when something does not pass the smell test, it smells dirty. Now, that being said, this little girl didn't just run off on her own into the wilderness. I've observed what this home looks like, the long driveway leading to the main road. To me, in my opinion, she had some kind of assistance, help. Also, not a well-traveled kind of what they're calling a highway. On this cold February day, she would not survive in boots, a sweater, and little thin cotton pants in that wilderness. Not to mention, as was stated, they waited this home to 80 minutes to, contact law enforcement. Also, there was a grandmother with her daughter in the parking lot that drove up. They say 3 to 5 minutes. Then they started searching for her. She was nowhere to be found. Cadaver dogs picked up something, but not necessarily her scent. She's never been found. And I want to point out, most missing children, it comes from somebody in their circle, family members, just in their circle, family, friends. It's not always that white van. It's very unlikely somebody was just driving along and picked her up. I find it very suspicious that a child's place did not have alarms, cameras, security guards, something that this 9-year-old precious little girl could just run off to never be heard from again. It's just unfathomable.
And Lynn Shaw joining us, who's been speaking out after Serenity's disappearance. When I think about this Children's Home Society, Black Hills Children's Home Society, I feel about it much as I feel about when I leave my children at school. I believe they're going to be protected. I believe that the teachers and the staff and the security guards are going to take care of them until I see them at the end of the day. Or I could not exist from 8 a.m. to 3:30 if I didn't believe that. And I would have believed the same thing about the Children's Society. But boy, what were those parents wrong? Really wrong. Because this girl could very well be dead right now because of their negligence. And I'm very happy for them to come on and defend themselves, but guess what? They didn't. So what do you make of the situation where they are the guardian ad litem, the basically de facto guardian of the child?
If you dig in and we don't have time to look at little Serenity's history, it is very sad. I mean, shuffled about, step parents, a stepmother working. She was working that day that Serenity disappeared. But we also have to remember, again, this little girl was said to have run away many times. When children tell us when something is bothering them, we just have to listen and look. She was running away multiple times. A very confused family background. I'll let everybody else investigate that. And she was telling us there was some kind of pain, something she was running away from. So with that being said, she's now in this facility, which frankly, a 9-year-old, you have to guard children, somebody with that history. All children have to be, our precious children, protected. And she wasn't. My gut tells me I am more, if I didn't know better, and law enforcement would agree with me, okay, investigators, the school's responsibility, this facilities, whatever they're calling themselves, where little Serenity was. I want to know in the middle of wilderness why there weren't alarms, cameras, more security. How was she able to run down that big long driveway? How was she able within 5 minutes? Nobody could find her when they were in a vehicle and went out searching for her. How could she survive in that cold weather? I put more of, in my opinion, the blame on the facility, and somebody, Nancy, out there knows something. We know with all of these missing children, and on any given day, I want to point out in America, 2,300 children are missing. People know things. So I think we have to dig deeper into this child facility, see what's going on. And I read they were waiting to get a grant to put in alarms and a security system. Unacceptable.
Guys, take a listen to Deputy Chief Willie Welch.
It's Sunday morning. We're back up here at the children's home. We got our dog teams out searching for Serenity. We got a large crew up in the woods. We got launched on time this morning, and we're just going to work for as long as we can today. And again, our plan and our number one goal is to bring Serenity home today, and hopefully we can do that.
Joining me, former U.S. Marshal with the International Investigations Branch and author of Flying Solo, Top of the World, and a whole series of Jack Solo books on Amazon. Irv, did you see that? Did you hear what Lynn Shaw just said? Did you see that snow? How did this little girl, just 9 years old, go all the way down that long driveway to Black Hills Children's Society and get away? How did that happen? You track down people all over the world. How did this little 9-year-old girl get away and that snow?
Nancy, it's hard to explain. I have investigated many, like you said, looked for many people. But this is a unique place, whereas when they're saying, police weren't called fast enough, a search wasn't done quickly enough, in most places, if we're talking about Atlanta, Georgia, Miami, Florida, things like that, if a child wanders off or a child intentionally runs away, that child isn't facing imminent death because of the weather. In a place where this is in South Dakota, and how remote that area was and the weather conditions that day, it's just hard to believe that. I know a child can't reason like an adult, but even a child would know I can't run away and hide, to have them come look for me because I might possibly die.
Hearing you talk, Irv Brandt, let me throw what you're saying to Bart Fancook, Content Director, South Dakota News Watch. Bart, the more I think this through, the more I listen to Lynn Shaw and Irv Brandt, I don't know that I believe that's what happened. Because I really do not believe that a 9-year-old girl in that snow, in those elements, could get away that quickly. If a search was launched 4 minutes after she disappeared, I don't know that she ever even left that facility. I don't know that I believe any of this, Bart.
Well, you're not the only one to have questions. I will say that the weather was not, it wasn't snow-covered ground when she disappeared. The storm came in that night. I will say that the working theory by sheriff's investigators is that she did wander off and maybe got too far away. She liked to see people searching for her, and that she was unable to get back or be found, and then the storm hit. And the 3 to 4 minutes is the time period between where a grandmother who was dropping a child off there saw her run across the field in front of the home and then began her own search driving down that road. So the 80 minutes was before officials were actually called in and 911 was called. So that's a distinction, but that's not a good look for the Children's Home Society, which I will say does have a good reputation in South Dakota for helping children. And this was something I know is a black mark against them, and I think that they've taken it very seriously. But
she's
I think
dead,
the other thing,
Bart.
The other
it's
thing
more
I
than
would
a
note,
black mark. This child is more likely than not dead on their watch. And I don't care if it's nuns and priests and virgins all doing the right thing. The child is gone on their watch. I hear what you're saying. Lynn Shaw, where does it stand now? Have we just given up on finding Serenity? And Bart, jump in if you have something to add on that. Where does it stand now? Are we just forgetting about her, that she ever got lost?
This is the problem in America, Nancy. When I pointed out before, 2,300 children on any given day, do the math, are just missing. And I also want to point out most of those kids are vulnerable, come from a very vulnerable family, community. Nobody's even looking for them. So Serenity at least had the largest in South Dakota, child search looking for her. But let's get real here. Let's get real here. She had help. This is my opinion. She was a child, everybody has pointed out, seeking attention, like people looking for her, wanted to, ran away a lot of, many times. She would come out. She's now 14 years old. That kind of personality would have at some point come back looking for attention. That's my opinion. She is most likely, I want to be very realistic here. We work with sex trafficking of children, missing kids. We just had National Missing Children's Day. This child, most likely blonde, fair complexion, in my opinion, highly perhaps sex trafficked. And I agree, Nancy, we have not heard from her. No signs from her, most likely dead. I think we would have heard from her by now. This baby, this precious little girl, didn't just run away into the snow and that's it. We can't find her. And too bad, she is gone. And there are adults out there that know what happened to her. So I think the investigation has to continue. And with DNA today, they cannot give up on this. No child, one child missing is too much. We have to keep this in front of the public and in front of the national, consciousness of everybody and keep talking and rally around all of these missing kids.